Hi, I'm Steve Gompertz of QRx Partners, and welcome to this week's Quality Heretic. I want to talk about something that struck me one time. I was asked to give a presentation on quality tools and applying them to root cause analysis. And it was a virtual session. And when we got on, waiting for everybody, to log in, the person who was kind of being the MC, wanted to do a little icebreaker, and so asked the audience, "Hey, what's your favorite go-to, quality tool?" And I kind of kept my mouth shut. But the problem was I was about to present on why that's a bad idea. And so today's topic is to talk about having a go-to quality tool. Because I do hear people talk about that. Oh, my favorite tools, always use a fishbone diagram. I always go to the five whys. I always, go to Pareto charts or, hey, and the problem is that's not really the right approach. You can't fix things with a single tool. Think about the last time you had to fix something around the house. How many tools did you end up having to use? It's rare that you get to fix anything in life with a single tool, right? And the same goes for quality. You've probably all heard this quote or some version of it by Abraham Maslow. Maybe you didn't know who it was from, but his quote was, "I suppose it is tempting, if the only tool you have is a hammer, to treat everything as if it were a nail." And there are very shorter variants of that, right? But they're all kind of the same thing, right? Everything looks like a nail if the only tool you have is a hammer. Smart guy, Maslow. He was a psychologist, if you're not familiar with him. And you probably, without knowing it, know quite a bit of his work. But everybody's usually heard that quote, maybe not known what the source was. But he's right. We tend to adapt the tool we have to the situation. As quality professionals, though, our job, like any other professional, is to have a toolbox with us, right? That's part of being a professional, is that you're not expert in just using a single tool. You are expert in a lot of different tools and knowing not only how to use them, but when to use them. And that's kind of really the key here. So that idea of having a go-to quality tool to me is really a myth, because that would imply that there's a best tool for all situations, a one size fits all, and that's not really true, right? You are, as a good quality professional, you have to assess is it I'm trying to do within the PDCA cycle, which phase of the cycle I'm in, because the tools would be different, right? And throughout that cycle, because you're supposed to do the whole cycle, right? Not just one piece of it, you will keep using different tools. You can't use the same tool all the way through. You might reuse the tool in certain, phases, but at some point you need to reach into your toolbox and pull the next appropriate tool out to apply. And it may, again, even within a single part of PDCA, you may need multiple tools to get through that piece of the cycle. Um, so just you always have to remember, quality tools are intended to be used together. Some of them do kind of accomplish the same thing. And so maybe you have a preference when you're trying to do a particular type of activity and you have a choice of tools. Do I need a box end wrench or do I need a socket wrench, right? Ultimately, you're going to remove a nut. But which one is better suited for what I'm trying to do? So there are those kind of, situations. But otherwise, you usually have to lay out a lot of different tools and use them in a certain order in order to accomplish the work. When I teach, one of the examples I use is, things like, hey, start with an is not exercise, right? Just to constrain the problem, right? So we're not all over the place. Then maybe we build a fishbone diagram, Ishikawa diagram, right? So that we can make sure that we look at potential root causes from multiple perspectives. And then we'll go into each branch or each bone on the fish and do a little brainstorming, right? And I'm always a big fan of brainstorming. Normally would be followed up with um, an exercise to kind of narrow down all those wild ideas. Um, and then you might go test your theories with run charts. Right now, you collect some data to see, does this hold up, and so on. But that's the thinking that needs to happen there. Is that there isn't going to be, oh, I have a problem, going to pull out my Ishikawa diagram, and that's going to solve everything. And if you think about, if an Ishikawa or fishbone is your favorite, think about how you use it. you actually, if you think about the way in which you make it work, you automatically bring in other tools like brainstorming or five whys and things like that. So it's like, yeah, you can't even use a fishbone diagram without bringing in other tools naturally. So think about next time you have to solve a problem, one, think about the PDCA cycle and then think about where am I at, right? I got a plan. Which are the right tools, right? And is not, I think, is a great planning tool. A fishbone kind of helps you make that transition from plan to do. And that's the thinking that needs to happen. So don't have a go-to tool. Have an approach where you understand how am I going to pick the right tools out of my toolbox. As always, I hope to see some great conversation in the comments. So please feel free to, add something there. Otherwise, see you next week at the next Quality Heretic.